So I guess ultimately, PAs get a lot of flack, I guess, for not being the glamorous job. But take it from the two of us, it's definitely a good way, a good way through the door. And
Exactly.
then it only leads to more opportunity, provided you don't royally screw up.
Very true.
And then I guess speaking of royal screw-ups, that brings us to the film discussion portion of the show. So for those listening in the first time, how this works is I used to have a YouTube show where I would recommend like 10 or so movies a month, and I would show clips, but it would get flagged by copyright all the time because I would show footage, and I also hated the sound of my own voice reading off a really badly written script. So that's why we have this show, is that I still wanted to do film discussion. So every episode I recommend the guest a movie, the guest recommends me a movie, and we discuss. And to complete the reference I made earlier, one of the movie that Cole recommended me was Logan Lucky. So tell us a little bit about this film.
So Logan Lucky is directed by Steven Soderbergh, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong.
No,
he's
that's
the same
correct.
guy. Oh, great. He's the same guy who did the Ocean's movies, Magic Mike, The Girlfriend Experience, High Flying Bird, I think is the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan Lucky is a story about this kind of cursed family. Nothing goes right for one of the main characters, played by Channing Tatum. Adam Driver plays his brother. And the main character that Channing Tatum plays comes up with a plan for a heist, which is always a great setup. But he's planning to steal millions of dollars from the Charlotte Motor Speedway during the race. And it's just, man, it's like peak heist movie for me. Like,
yeah.
It introduces the setup of these characters so well. And I think my favorite part about the movie is actually, like, the main characters are, for lack of a better politically correct term, are kind of rednecks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't play them for, like, just jokes or, like, kind of exploitation. It's more of a homage to the culture than it is, like, haha, Southerners, you know?
Right.
And, like, I really appreciate that.
There is a little bit of the, like, haha, Southerners with the two, not like the main Channing Tatum. The other two.
The Bang Brothers.
Yeah, the Bang Brothers. Yeah, there's a little bit of that with them, but I think that it's acceptable the way that they do it. It's not too grating.
Yeah, and I think Soderbergh is a master at sort of these. He's the heist king. To tell the truth, and he's also really great at these character moments of, like, development in these small scenes. I mean, the main character's relationship with his daughter is just, like, really heartwarming, and it's kind of simple and straightforward, and it's just, it's a little heartwarming moment. But even side characters, like the driver that Sebastian Stan plays, like, he gets his own little moment to shine in the movie, even though it's just for, like, a 4-minute sequence, and he's fucking great in it. And
exactly.
It's like every single actor and character in the movie just shines. But I think my favorite one, though, is Daniel Craig as Joe Bang.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, oh my god, incredible. It's so good. It's just so, especially because I think it was his first big role since doing James Bond, like, such a departure from what most audiences know him as.
Right.
And then he just comes in as this crazy Southern guy who likes to blow stuff up, and it's like, this is amazing. He's like tatted up, bleach blonde hair. Oh my god, just mind-boggling. It's great.
Yeah, he's definitely had a very interesting post James Bond career with, like, this and Knives Out. Like, he's very, like, I don't want to say, like, chameleonic, but, like, he's very, like, he's not, like, the one note that, like, he comes across as. He slips into a lot of different roles.
I'm willing
really
to pay millions of dollars any studio every year just to keep him playing, like, random Southern characters. Just anything he's in as that, I'm buying a ticket right away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just great to see that. And I like my favorite scene in the movie that he's in is when spoilers, I guess. Towards the end of the movie, he's planning an explosive, and it's consistent of, like, gummy bears and oil in, like, a plastic bag. And he's trying to figure out the distance, and he asks the main character, like, is it 30 feet or 40 feet? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, we're dealing with science here. And it's just a bag of gummy bears. Like, this is just beautiful. and like he starts writing equations on like the stone. Yeah. I was like, oh my god.
I love the later in that same sequence where like the thing comes back down the pipe and Adam Driver catches it, and they're like you're just waiting for it to blow up, and then he's like, oh no, I tightened it too much. Hold on, let's try that again. And he just puts it back in. Like, I love that.
It's so, and that's what I think really makes the film great for me. It's just like these little moments just constantly come at you, and they're all just amazing to watch. And like and I love how like towards the end there's always like the big reveal of like how the heist was done. Yeah, I can't get enough of that stuff. And like to me, heist movies are always great, but it's see one that's more sort of less robbing a casino in Monte Carlo and more like NASCAR heist, like real true American sort of style kind of thing. Like it'd be a great double feature with Baby Driver, I think. Sort of like American car heist action movie.
Exactly, yeah. And that is like the one thing that is kind of inherent with like any movie like this, but the when they finally go back and they show you like here's how it all happened, it's just such a gratifying well put together sequence of events, the way that they choose to show it, and like all the little pockets of comedy that are interjected, like the prison riot and the
I almost forgot about that. It's so great, like all these little sort of side stories that it cuts back to.
Right.
And oh my gosh. Yeah, and I love the line where it's like George R. R. Martin was supposed to deliver The Winds of Winter's publisher 2 years ago.
Yeah, oh my god.
It's like, well, we're still waiting. That movie's 2 years old now, so it's been 4 years.
Exactly. And he's like, bullshit, there's no way. The last people who came in here knew all about what happened. He's like trying to explain that there's a TV show. Oh my god, that was so good.
And like every Soderbergh movie is great because like he directs it. He's usually the DP, he's the editor, he's usually the co-writer on it. I think actually the official writer from this one was under a pseudonym, but the confirmed rumors that it was his wife who wrote the script because she comes from sort of that area and that kind of family.
Yeah.
But like he's one of those guys who just needs full creative control over everything he does.
Right.
He actually sold the rights to stream the movie before the movie came out, so he had the money to edit the trailers and stuff himself, like to have the rights for it. Mm-hmm. So like he sold the movie to Amazon before it was done, just so he could have complete creative control over the marketing and everything.
That's
like
really
the
cool.
Man is just a genius, and to be able to have that ability to control so much stuff on your movie and it to turn out not just good but amazing, it's just mind-boggling to me, especially for people like us who generally when they shoot stuff like that all on their own, it comes out all right, but like to operate something on that scale of a movie and it's come out really good, it's just mind-boggling to me.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it is very important to kind of maintain that. It might be a little bit of a stretch to say auteur status, but like to have that like total creative control. One of my favorite interviews, there's a great show, I think I've told you about it before, but there's a great show on Robert Rodriguez's television network where he sits down and he interviews famous directors and they like go through their career and they talk about like the making of each movie specifically from the perspective of a director. And one of the first episodes they did was John Carpenter, and he was talking about like how important it is to like I think the direct thing that he was talking about was like having like your name like above the title, like John Carpenter's Halloween or John Carpenter's The Thing. And the thing that he always says is about auteurism is he says it's important for the audience to know that there is a captain of the ship. There is someone who's like making all the decisions, and ultimately it's important like to carry that sort of weight. It's either all of my success or it's either all of my failure. Like if it fails, it's because of me. If it was a success, it was because of me. And I think that it's very it's a little risky to kind of like put all your eggs in that basket because not everyone can stretch themselves into all those different areas. But I think Soderbergh is definitely one of those people that can pull it off very well and has a really good sense of like, I know what I'm doing and I know which direction to steer this ship and it's going to come out okay.
And I think that's when you really know sort of like you've made it, when it's like, yeah, when your name's on the masthead, or like, when if someone says like, "Oh, did you hear about the new Tarantino movie?" Like
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
head, you already kind of know what it's like, and you hate it or love it, but you know what it is. Like, and even even when you take that to like the editing or the if Roger Deakins is a DP of a movie, you're like, oh, like I know it's gonna look amazing. Like
Right.
having when you've made it, when you sort of have like this aura about you, and you're like, oh, I know what this is gonna be like, and I can't wait for it. Like a Nolan movie, it's gonna have weird time travel stuff or plot things that don't really make sense, but you're willing to go along with it because it's Nolan. Like,
Yeah.
and Soderbergh sort of has that of like, the movie he shot that came out, I think last year, High Flying Bird, was like all shot on an iPhone. It was kind of a basketball movie, not really, but it was like, I'm going to watch it because I know it's Soderbergh. I know it's going to be, very human focused and sort of a story about people and their personalities. And like, I'm in, that's when he really made it.
And it seems like that's kind of like his very, like that's one thing that he's very good at is making these like, I don't want to say like relationship, but like he's very good at doing like people centric stories.
Yeah, very, very people centric and very like everything he does is really sort of about. It's always kind of comes back to heist movie in a weird way. Like High Flying Bird is a movie about if the NBA did a lockout, right? So like no one's playing, the players are demanding more money, and the owners want to give it to them. And it's like, how does this agent get his client money out of this? Right. And so it's like kind of heisting movie from the big guys. And like even Magic Mike is kind of a movie about sort of how do I find money and make a living during this Great Recession kind of thing. Like all his movies are about people and their charisma and sort of about like how do we find success or how do we continue and get better through this whatever event it is. And I love that kind of storytelling of, very people centric and very sort of how do we continue in this world.
Right. Yeah. It is. Yeah. He's definitely a master at his craft. Like I can't really think of like many. Like I wish I was more familiar with his filmography. The only ones that I really know is I know most of them by name, but like I haven't really. I still have yet to see any of the Ocean's movies. I haven't seen. Magic Mike kind of has like that weird stigma to it, but
it definitely does.
Yeah, but I was a big fan of this. I saw a little bit of Side Effects that looked really interesting. Contagion is I think oddly relatable to what we're going through today. That's probably the one that I'm most familiar with out of all his work. And I did see Sex, Lies, and Videotape ages ago, but I couldn't tell you about it.
It's been years on my end for that one. But
what would you say is your favorite out of what he's done?
I think my favorite is honestly Logan Lucky. I think it's just so. It also it's because it represents sort of a group of people that really don't ever get shown in our media, like,
or at least in a positive light, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I mean, how many movies are set in New York or in LA? Or Miami, big cultural city centers, and like I get it, it's because there's a lot of people. That's a glitz, it's a glam, but it's like no, a lot of people do live in communities like our main characters do in these like poor, true Americana locations, and like setting it against a NASCAR race, which is like that's real American sports there. I mean, it's the most American sports are baseball, football, NASCAR. Like it's just, and so to give representation, which I know kind of how representation is discussed is more minority groups, but like to have sort of this large group of people portrayed that isn't in a way just for laughs, I think is really impressive of him to do. Yeah, in a way.
And even still, there are kind of subtle little like nods to like, yeah, we know how ridiculous this is. We know how.
Oh yeah.
Like you said specifically with like the true Americana, like we have that like little sequence where they're like it's like the ESPN news desk and they're like talking about like the race, and you have the announcers being like, "Oh man, this is a true test of athleticism and challenge," and
even like Oh, it's so great. And then even the sort of subplot of his daughter doing those beauty pageants and like the whole like, oh, mommy said I can't eat ice cream, so I'm going to get fat. And she's like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And it's just yeah, they poke fun at it, but guess what? That's how a lot of people kind of live and think. And, for it to be portrayed in a light that isn't just like, these people are worthless. It's like, no, these are people. They have lives. This is what it's like, except, most of them probably don't pull off heists at races, but I'm sure someone at some point will, hopefully, because that'd be a great news story.
Yeah, I did really much like the way that that whole thing kind of evolved too, and like with the news being like, oh man, this is really weird, and then like the way that it kind of resolves itself. I mean, we're kind of into spoilers already, but when Channing Tatum just gives back like basically all the money. And you think like it was this big guilt trip for a minute, and then everything gets revealed. Like it's gratifying, and what I like about it too is like it's never really out of character. Like everything nobody in this movie is you'd look at it and you'd think like, oh, all these characters are, like we've said, they're all caricatures of real life, but they're very. It's very much not that way. They're all very relatable. No one's really like demonized. It's just kind of like no, this is a little window into the lives of these people, and this is just what they happen to be doing.
And like I really love at like towards the end, when the racetrack, the guy who owns it or whatever, he's like, oh yeah, we got insurance to cover it. We don't really care anymore. It's just like, this whole hour and a half of the movie, they've been playing this ice and all this, and they get the money, and like the racetrack's like, yeah, whatever. And
it's just so inconsequential.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it pushes the theme that he has in a lot of his movies of, the small guy, the big guy kind of thing, and it's like, does the big guy even notice? And it's like, well, maybe not, but hey, he, Logan got his, so who cares, kind of thing.
Right. And I did like the kind of like the little way where it maybe it's not quite resolved by the end, but like you do get that moment of like, oh yeah, it all worked out and everything's okay, and I don't know. It was
an open but satisfying ending where it's like, I want a sequel, but if they don't ever give it to me, I'll live.
Exactly. It's a feel good heist movie, and I was very happy with it. My only problem with it, I don't know what it was, but the only major complaint that I had was Seth MacFarlane as the business guy.
It was kind of weird. Yeah, I'm not sure how I felt about it, but the crazier thing is, so Formula One, which is like the big European car racing series, right?
Yeah.
Last season, there was a British guy who bought a portion of a team who was like totally insane, like energy drink owner and all this stuff. And like I hadn't watched Logan Lucky until like a week ago. I rewatched it for this podcast, and I was like, oh my God, Seth MacFarlane's character is literally this guy. And then you look, I'm like, hang on a second, Logan Lucky came out before this guy bought part of the team. And I was like, this guy just took his entire personality from Seth MacFarlane's character. And yeah, I think the guy was a bit over the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, thankfully he wasn't in the movie for too long.
Yeah.
I think if there were a few more scenes with him, it would have been really grating.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that was like I said, that was my biggest issue with it. All the performances were great. It's just whenever he was on, like you said, it just kind of like very grating. A lot of like the commentary that they were kind of like trying to put out there with his dialogue seemed a little too on the nose, where his car is burning and he's like, come on, pull out your phone, we got to document this or else it didn't happen. Like that's like that. I rolled my eyes a little bit there, but everything else was fantastic.
I almost felt like it was kind of sort of a reversal of like the funny redneck annoying guy, and then it's like we flipping it to like the annoying grating British guy almost. It kind of like flips the whole thing on his head. But yeah, I think one more scene with him, I would have been like, okay, you know what? Too much MacFarlane for me in this one.
Exactly. But I mean, other than that, it's a very, very satisfying movie. I was a little bit concerned with like the fact that it was a 2-hour runtime, but it doesn't feel that long at all. Like especially once the heist actually starts, like it really moves, and the last like 45 minutes or so like go by in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was 2 hours. Now I think about it, it's like, wow, it really did go quick. But no, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. Like, it's one of those movies that I think is just, the critics liked it, but I think it didn't get seen by a lot of people who would actually really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like trying to push it to as many people as possible.
Right. Yeah. It is. I don't know. It's a great feel good movie that I think everyone should check out. So if you somehow haven't seen Logan Lucky yet by the time you're listening to this, first of all, why would you do that? Go watch the movie. But you can find it for free on Amazon Prime. If you don't have a Prime subscription, you can also watch it on YouTube, Google Play, and Vudu for a rental fee of $4 across all three platforms. So it's very reasonable. If you have a Prime subscription, there's no reason why you shouldn't watch it. It's a fun 2 hours. You'll enjoy every second of it. And yeah, Logan Lucky. It's a very good movie.
Fantastic.